I go by the name Analysis. My real name is Ken Brown. I am a poet, spoken word artist, hence my art's name Analysis. I am theologically trained, Master of Divinity. My faith tradition is the United Church of Christ. I'm not an ordained minister within the UCC, but I have served in national ministry with the denomination, and I am in various incarnations of my life, a secondary school educator, an organizer. I have a background in some international justice work, especially going back to the anti-apartheid movement. The criminalization of people of color that is a result, partially and in large part, of the so-called war on drugs, to me is a manifestation of control. It is a direct descendant of slavery. It is a direct piece of what oppression is in this country. It is a system by which people of color, poor working class whites, are disproportionately put into a system of control, rather than demonizing everybody who uses any type of drug or demonizing those who are actually addicted. Let's look at the situations and the conditions that cause folk to be addicted, and more than just the science of well, this particular chemical is going to get the body hooked. No, there's a lot more to it than that. There are conditions that drive people to use drugs. So instead of demonizing those folk, let's change the conditions in which people live. But then, as many folk can attest to, let's look at money also. Let's follow the money in terms of what's happening. Police districts getting money for SWAT teams when they're not necessary in many situations. Look at what's happening in terms of not only sentencing, but even before you get to that, in terms of bookings. And how districts are encouraged to have larger booking numbers than are really necessary. All of these things feed into the problem. As a person of faith, I have a problem with this because certainly my own faith tradition and many faith traditions talk about elevating the poor, releasing the captives, freeing the oppressed, and what have you. So why is it that we who profess to be in a country of faith, or why is it that a country that professes to be a country of faith places so much emphasis in doing the exact opposite in terms of locking folk up, in terms of repressing people? It's done under the guise of, well, we have to keep this a nice, safe society. Well, no, that's not really what's happening. As a matter of fact, by incarcerating more, you're feeding dangerous systems because you're taking people away from economic sources, legitimate economic bases. You're creating poorer conditions in the societies that quite obviously is going to lead to more folk turning towards criminal activities. But it would seem to me that if we had policies that created better conditions and reduced a whole lot of needless bookings, a whole lot of needless arrests, a whole lot of imbalance in sentencing, and that type of thing, that it would, over the long term, benefit law enforcement officials and districts, because it would be creating a better and stronger relationship with the community. I myself have a nephew that was tasered to death by a deputy in Frederick County, Maryland. So, you know, my own family is well familiar with the what we consider the extremely unnecessary use of force by policing, by law enforcement officials. Why don't we take a step away from that and change the systems that feed that and encourage that and fuel that, and actually say, no, why don't we make some common sense steps in terms of taking the criminalization and therefore taking a lot of the violence and the profit motive out of drug use, looking at it as a health situation, and more importantly, changing the conditions which make it an unhealthy situation in the first place. Let's do that. That makes a better and less criminal community, which makes it a safer situation for law enforcement officials. If I were a policeman, I would rather be in a community that did not feel pressured and was not being forced into doing negative things. I would feel safer walking those streets. So much more to say on that, but I think that might be a synopsis.